and then translate further into quality of the products who will have to undergo through that kind of curriculum. The other goal is to involve the local communities. In any case, the local communities have to be involved in so many ways so that they take the education sector as their own. And they have to understand the activities that are there in the education sector to promote teaching and learning. So this is very important. The local communities have to ensure that they can provide some kind of support to teaching and learning in their schools. That's why they have to be involved, and this must be one of the goals, to ensure that there is a participation of the communities around. The fourth principal goal is to determine the financial costs. Determining the financial costs implies that there is always a cost to every activity that is being undertaken. Now, in education, there are so many activities that have to be undertaken. Take, for example, the construction of the schools may need that a financial analysis is properly done to see to what extent will the local communities contribute and what is it that the central government can also contribute. And that translates into costs. So that is very, very important too. The fifth goal is to determine the materials to be used and how they will be incorporated into the syllabus. Now, the materials also will need to be selected properly in view of the syllabus and what the syllabus has suggested as materials that can be used. And also at the same time, press upon the innovation, the innovative mind of the teacher to improvise certain materials that can facilitate teaching and learning. This is very, very important. And then the other goal is to establish a local or state assessment system to monitor progress. That is, how will the system appreciate that teaching and learning is taking place? There must be a well-established assessment system so that it can be used for evaluating the progress of the pupils, of the students. This is also a very, very important goal. Now, let us consider the acquisition planning problems. The acquisition planning problems that may follow. Although acquisition planning can be useful to governments, but there are several problems to consider, several challenges to consider. This is very, very important to consider because the challenges may hamper the progress of the activities that can be there to ensure that there is improvement in the delivery and the learning processes. And so, there is a need that we really appreciate the challenges that are there. Not simply appreciating the challenges, but also ensuring that those challenges are well explored to find their mitigation factors, mitigation methods, so that they are held under control to ensure that teaching and learning becomes successful. The first one to consider is uncertainty of the effects of planning methods. This is where one or the community may not be very exact as to what is very likely to follow. And therefore, the planning itself must be done cautiously to ensure that every danger, every challenge is well viewed and viewed in advance, in a sense that they can not be acting retrogressively on what is being suggested or what is being put forward, so that the teaching and learning processes can be successful. The other problem is considering the effects of such planning on other aspects of state planning, like economic planning, political planning, social planning, etc. The challenge here is focus on acquisition planning may be diverted, may be blocked by the other forces of planning that are there in the society. Take, for example, acquisition planning in education versus political planning in the country. If there is a political stir in the country, more resources might be channeled towards political stability rather than acquisition planning. The same is true if the state has economic problems. Programs that are there to boost economic activities in the country will take greater priority, and therefore this issue of acquisition planning may be given or may be allocated lesser resources. This is a challenge at a national level or at a community level. The other challenge or problem is that some proposed acquisition changes could be too drastic. Now, if the acquisition changes are very powerful, that becomes a problem too, because it will require that you pool the resources towards such a program so that it is well carried out. And such resources may not be available, so that would be a problem as well. The other one is that acquisition planning could be instituted too suddenly without proper planning and organization. This is one of the worst scenarios that may happen in the society. Sudden implementation of a program is often dangerous because it lacks proper planning. It lacks proper organization. Now, we have to guard against sudden implementation of acquisition planning programs so that these programs are properly prepared, looked into seriously, so that by the time you implement them, all the issues are well clear and the path is also clear, that you may not have the obstacles to deter the acquisition planning program. So this is also very, very important. And then we have acquisition planning, which can also be financially draining. Sometimes you might set up an acquisition planning program that is too ambitious, extremely expensive, that can drain the country's resources. Generally, education can be very expensive. So we have to guard against ambitious programs that may not have proper limits in terms of financial control. This is also important. Take note that adequate planning and awareness of financial resources are very, very essential, very, very important. Only if the organizers of the programs are cautious, are aware of the financial resources and what it takes to run a program, then acquisition planning can be successful. Now, let's discuss something a little bit different, but within the same acquisition planning. This is acquisition planning and multilingualism. Acquisition planning and multilingualism. Thus, when we are talking about multilingualism in education, we are talking about education in which you accommodate many languages. And this often happens in a multi-ethnic state, in a multi-ethnic country, in a multi-ethnic society or community. The community that has different ethnic groups. And those ethnic groups are marked by different languages. So the different ethnic groups speak different languages, and therefore they may not be forced to take the direction of a single language. there might be the probability that as many languages as possible are used in the education process. This is a serious concern, especially in countries that were once colonized. So the issue of multilingualism is a very serious concern, is a very serious issue. Also, along that, you have to take into account that most of the countries were originally colonized by foreign states, where different languages were imposed on the populace. Now, the challenge is on determining which language of instruction would be most beneficial in the community. This is in the consideration that the communities have their own languages, and the communities or the country is made up of different ethnic groups that speak different languages.